Welcome to The Explainer. We're here to break down the big stories by digging into the data and the details that really matter. So let's just dive right in. We are talking about a major political earthquake here. On January 5th, 2026, Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz, who you'll remember was just on the ticket for vice president, made a totally shocking announcement. He's dropping his bid for a third term. His official reason? He wanted to step aside to focus on the work. But as we're about to see, the story is, well, it's a lot more complicated than that. To really get why a popular governor would just suddenly walk away from a campaign, we have to look at a scandal that has absolutely consumed Minnesota politics. Okay, so first things first, let's set the stage. Who is Governor Walz? And how in the world did we get to this point? You know, if you look at his career, Walz seemed to be on this clear upward path. He gets elected governor back in 2018. He becomes a vice presidential running mate in 2024, and then just a few months ago, he kicks off his campaign for a third term. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. And then, bam, a complete and sudden change of direction. So, what could possibly cause a political earthquake of this magnitude? The answer, it turns out, is a welfare fraud scandal that is just staggering in its scale. Just take a look at this number, $9 billion. And no, that's not a typo. That is the high-end estimate from the U.S. Attorney for how much money was potentially stolen in what's now being called the largest COVID-era fraud scheme in the entire country. Now, okay, to be fair, there is some debate over the final number. The U.S. Attorney's Office says it's somewhere in the range of over $1 billion, but could go as high as $9 billion. Governor Walz, on the other hand, has said that $9 billion figure is sensationalized. But honestly, no matter what the final number is, the scale of this alleged theft is just, it's immense. So you're probably asking, how did this even happen? Well, prosecutors allege that criminals basically exploited programs that were meant to help people during the pandemic. They're accused of creating these massive, fake claims for meal and housing programs, often for people who didn't even exist. A huge part of the scheme allegedly involved laundering money through daycare centers, which gave them a believable way to receive enormous sums of government childcare money. And then you have fraudulent billing for Medicaid services on top of all that. The stolen money was then allegedly used to buy things like luxury cars, real estate, and jewelry, and some of it was even sent overseas. The investigation itself had actually been going on since 2022, but national attention just exploded recently. And the spark that lit the fuse, believe it or not, it was a YouTube video from a 23-year-old creator. It went viral, and it shined this huge spotlight on alleged fraud happening at daycare centers within the state's large Somali community. So the video goes viral, and what happens next? Well, just days later, the Trump administration steps in. Big time. They froze all federal childcare funding to Minnesota. That move dramatically cranked up the pressure on the state government and put Governor Walz right in the hot seat. And as you can imagine, this administrative crisis very quickly spiraled into a full-blown political firestorm for the governor. Here's how that played out. The scandal instantly became this powerful political weapon. National figures, and especially former President Donald Trump, just relentlessly attacked the governor, flat out calling him incompetent and using some other pretty harsh language to describe him. And in his own statement when he withdrew, Walz pointed the finger right back at all that intense political pressure. He really framed his decision as a way to get out of the political mud wrestling so he could actually focus on fixing the problem. So this really sums up his public position. Despite all the political attacks, Walz publicly took responsibility for the whole thing. He said it very clearly. This is on my watch, I am accountable for this, and then promised he would be the one to fix the broken systems. All right, so with Walz officially out of the race, what happens next? Let's take a look at the immediate fallout and the reactions from all across the political spectrum. And as you'd probably expect, the reactions were swift, and they were split right down party lines. Minnesota Republicans, like Representative Tom Emmer, basically said, good riddance, and claimed Walz knew he was going to lose. On the other side, Democrats, like DGA Chair Andy Beshear, praised Walz as a true leader and said they were very confident they'd hold on to the governorship. The governor's exit immediately reshuffled the entire political deck in Minnesota. I mean, almost instantly, reports started swirling that a very prominent Democrat, Senator Amy Klobuchar, is now thinking about jumping into the race to succeed him. And that brings us to the final and most crucial question. Tim Walz's decision has completely blown the Minnesota governor's race wide open. It pretty much guarantees that this massive fraud scandal is going to be front and center for months to come. The only thing we know for sure is that the fight for Minnesota's future has just begun.